Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are venturing into the frozen breath of prehistory, where fog drapes ancient forests like the tattered veil of forgotten gods and colossal creatures once ruled the land beneath moon and ice. Picture this: you shuffle along a narrow game trail, boots sinking into soft moss, and your breath clouds in the cold night air. The only sounds are the whisper of wind through pine needles and the soft crack of frost beneath your feet. Then you see them great rounded depressions in the earth, each larger than a bathtub pressed deep into the soil, as if the land itself were remembering. Mammoth tracks. Huge, lumbering arcs of footprints that weave around the dark silhouettes of towering trees. You follow them heart-pounding and realize with a shiver that if a mammoth were near you, probably wouldn't survive an unexpected meeting. Those tusks aren't just for decoration. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. I don't want you on this journey unless you're ready for it. And as always, post your location and local time down in the comments. I love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. The tracks lead you deeper into the mist where the trees grow ancient and gnarled. Their roots claw up through the ground like the fingers of sleeping giants. The footprints don't move in a straight line. Instead, they form slow, deliberate circles around a massive pine. It's almost as if the mammoth were dancing or performing some strange ritual, maybe trying to summon an ancient spirit to bless its slumber. You can't help but grin at the thought, though you quickly smother it. Out here under these towering trees and this heavy silence, even your own jokes feel like they might wake something best left undisturbed. The ground where the mammoth stepped is soft and dark, the kind of loamy earth that soaks up sound. You crouch down and touch it, feeling the chill seep into your skin. The depression is wide and deep enough to hold rainwater. A little off topic, but did you know that ancient people sometimes drank from these track pools, believing the water held the strength of the animal that made them? Maybe they were right. Maybe you should have brought a cup. You rise and glance around. The mist thickens, swallowing the stars and turning the world into shades of gray. The tree at the center of the tracks stands like a sentinel, bark scarred and rough branches heavy with frost. A patch of lichen glows faintly near the base, catching the moonlight in a way that almost looks like a warning. Historians still debate whether these trees were chosen at random by the mammoths, or if certain species offered some advantage. A particular shape, a kind of bark that repelled insects, or roots that steadied the ground. No one's sure. What's clear is that these creatures made choices, and those choices left marks that have outlasted them. You take a slow step forward, careful not to crush the delicate prints of smaller animals crisscrossing the mammoth's path, foxes maybe, or snow hares. The forest is a palimpsest of tracks, each telling a story of hunger, fear, and survival. The mammoth's tail is the boldest, etched deep into the earth like a signature. There's a hush now, the kind that falls when the world holds its breath. You can almost hear the thrum of mammoth footsteps echoing through time. The circles grow tighter near the tree, the prints overlapping until the ground is churned into a dark ring. You picture the mammoth itself, a woolly behemoth with curved tusks sweeping the air, tiny eyes glinting beneath a shaggy brow. It moves with surprising grace despite its size, and each heavy step is a decision. Closer, closer to the tree until its massive flank nearly brushes the bark. You pause a hand, resting against the trunk, and feel the faint warmth trapped in the wood. Maybe that's your imagination, or maybe the tree remembers too. A branch snaps somewhere behind you and you whirl around, heart in your throat. It's nothing, just a squirrel or a falling limb, but you laugh softly at yourself anyway. Out here, every sound feels like it could be a predator sizing you up. And let's be honest, you'd make a pretty easy snack right now. Mammoths had predators too, of course. Big ones. The kind that made a creature think twice about where it lay down for the night. Your gaze drifts back to the footprints. And you wonder how many times this exact scene played out over thousands of years. A mammoth circling, testing the ground, checking the shadows before finally settling. A behavior shaped by fear, by wisdom, by instinct older than language. And here's a fun, odd fact while we're at it. The spiral pattern of mammoth tracks inspired some ancient human art spirals carved into stone or bone that mirrored these great circles in the earth. Maybe those artists had seen scenes like this just as you have, or maybe they just liked the shape. Who knows? You take a deep breath, drawing in the scent of pine, wet earth, and something else, something musky, ancient, as if the ghost of the mammoth still lingers here. The air is thick with memory, and for a moment you feel like you could step into the past, join the great beast in its slow, deliberate dance around the tree. But of course you don't. You're just a visitor in this world of shadows and tracks, and the forest will keep its secrets a little longer. The path of prints winds ahead, and you follow, your boots squelching softly. In the damp earth, the night air crisp enough to bite at your nose. The mist parts in lazy swirls as you move, revealing a clearing where moonlight drips like silver paint across the landscape. There, in the center of it all, stands the mammoth. You freeze, breath catching, because it's one thing to imagine such a creature, and quite another to see it, massive wool draping its sides in shaggy curtains, tusks gleaming like ancient ivory sabers. The animal moves slowly with the gravity of something that knows its place in the world. And you're the intruder here, no doubt about that. The mammoth doesn't notice you, or maybe it does and just doesn't care. Either way, you watch as it begins its nightly ritual, circling a gnarled pine that must be older than human memory. The ground trembles slightly beneath its steps, a gentle rumble you feel through the soles of your feet, as if the earth itself acknowledges the creature's presence. With each circuit, the mammoth lowers its great head a little more, its breath steaming in the chill. The circles are measured, purposeful, not frantic, not clumsy. It's as if the beast is drawing a protective sigil with its own weight. You wonder what the mammoth senses that you can't. The air smells clean enough. The wind soft. Yet here it is, tracing that careful path. Historians still debate whether this circling was purely instinct, like a dog turning before it lies down, or if mammoths developed it as a learned behavior passed from elder to calf through generations of ice and shadow. A little family tradition, you might say, except with higher stakes. The mammoth pauses now and then, swinging its tusks to either side, brushing the bark of the tree. You can hear the soft scrape, almost like a sigh. Maybe it's checking for loose branches that could fall in the night. Or maybe it just likes the feel of the rough bark. Who can say? You'd probably do the same if your head weighed as much as a small car. A breeze stirs the mammoth's coat, lifting the coarse hair in waves, and with it comes that musky scent again. A smell of earth, of life lived close to the bone. It's not unpleasant, though. It's the kind of smell that would get you funny looks if you tried bottling it as a cologne. You step back into the shadow of a nearby spruce, not wanting to spook the animal. Though, let's be honest, you'd probably spook yourself before you'd startle something that size. The circling continues. Around and around the mammoth, moves, occasionally pausing to test the ground with a massive padded foot. You notice the subtle shift in weight, the way it presses down, as if gauging the firmness of the soil. A smart move, really. The last thing a mammoth wants is to sink into some hidden hollow or soft patch and end up stuck, or worse, on its side, vulnerable to whatever sharp-toothed nightmare might be waiting out there in the dark. Speaking of sharp teeth, let me distract you with an odd fact. Some Ice Age hunters believed mammoth bones had healing properties. They'd grind them up and mix the powder into tonics or salves. Personally, I think I'll stick with tea. As the mammoth completes another circle, the moon slips behind a cloud, dimming the clearing. You feel the temperature drop, as if the night itself has drawn a breath and is holding it. The mammoth seems to sense this too. It slows, lowers its head almost to the ground, and finally folds its legs beneath its enormous body, settling down like a great ship coming to rest on the sea. The rumble of its breathing fills the clearing, steady and deep, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. You exhale slowly, realizing you'd been holding your breath as if any noise from you might break the spell. The mammoth is still now a mountain of fur and bone tucked close to its chosen tree. The circles it left behind are clear in the moonlight. Once it returns a pattern pressed into the earth, a map of caution and care. There's a peacefulness to it this moment. But you can't help feeling a twinge of sadness, too. The mammoth's ritual, so precise, so deliberate, speaks of a world full of dangers. A world where even giants must be cautious, must plan their sleep as if it could be their last. You glance at the tree, its branches swaying gently, and wonder how many nights it has stood as guardian to creatures like this. A soft hoot from an owl breaks the stillness, and the mammoth stirs slightly, adjusting its bulk against the cold. You take that as your cue to retreat one slow step at a time, leaving the giant to its rest. As you move, you catch yourself glancing over your shoulder, half expecting to see those tusks gleaming at you through the mist. But the mammoth remains where it is, a living relic of a lost world. And as you slip back into the shadows, you think, what rituals have we forgotten? What ancient wisdom lies buried in the habits of the creatures who came before us? Maybe we'd be better off if we remembered to circle our own trees now and then, to test the ground, to choose our resting places with care. You move through the forest with your shoulders hunched against the cold ears, straining for any sound that might hint at what the mammoth feared. The trees close in their trunks black against the dim silver of the moonlight, their branches clutching at the sky like the arms of lost souls. You can't help but feel watched, as if the woods themselves are holding their breath, waiting for you to make a wrong step. Somewhere to your right, a branch snaps. Not the innocent crackle of frost, but something deliberate heavy. You freeze. Welcome to the Ice Age, where the night is not your friend. The mammoth circles around that old pine weren't just for fun. You can feel it now, the hidden threats pressing in from the dark. A rustle in the underbrush could be a wolf, or something worse. Maybe a cave lion, muscles rippling beneath a thick coat, watching with amber eyes, or a pack of dire wolves silent as the grave until the moment they strike. Historians still debate whether mammoths circled trees primarily because of these predators, or if other factors like terrain or weather were just as important. Either way, the danger was real, and tonight you feel it in your bones. Your breath clouds in the air, and you grip a low branch, steadying yourself as you listen. The forest hums with tension. The wind brings no comfort, only the sharp tang of pine and the faintest hint of decay. Maybe something died out here recently. Or maybe something plans to. You swallow hard and take a cautious step forward, boots crunching softly on frozen leaves. You half expect glowing eyes to flare from the shadows, but the night remains inscrutable, cloaking its secrets. The mammoth's wisdom becomes clearer with every step you take. Circling that tree gave it a defensive advantage. If something lunged from the undergrowth, the trunk offered a barrier, a chance to pivot to bring those great tusks to bear. You can almost picture it, a saber-toothed cat low to the ground, muscles coiled. The mammoth swinging its head in a wide arc, tusks slicing the air like scythes. The predator hesitates. The giant wins another night of peace. You hear a low growl, and your heart leaps before you realize it's your own stomach reminding you that fear burns calories. You smirk despite yourself, the sound startlingly loud in the quiet. As you move on, you can't help thinking of how modern humans would fare out here. Probably not great. No flashlights, no cozy campfires, no snacks, just instinct and whatever tools you had the sense to bring. And let's be honest, you left your spear at home, didn't you? A little odd fact to distract you: ancient mammoth hunters sometimes painted their hands with red ochre before a hunt, believing it gave them the strength of the beast they pursued. Imagine the confidence that takes walking into a forest like this with nothing but red hands and a dream. The ground slopes gently downward, and you realize you're entering a hollow where the mist thickens and the air grows colder. The trees stand farther apart here, their roots twisted and exposed like veins. It's easy to see how a mammoth could misstep in such a place and how circling a solid tree could help it find safer footing before settling down. You step carefully, testing each patch of earth before trusting it with your weight. The mammoth's caution seems wiser by the minute, and then a flicker of movement at the edge of your vision. You turn your head slowly, heart hammering, and there they are. Eyes, low yellow, unblinking. You can't tell if they belong to a wolf, a cat, or something else, but they're watching, measuring. The predator stays just beyond clear sight as if it knows that terror works best when cloaked in mystery. You remember the mammoth circle, how it kept its back to that tree, never exposing its flanks. You wish not for the first time tonight that you had a tree of your own, but the eyes vanish as silently as they appeared, swallowed by the dark. The forest exhales, and you realize you were holding your breath again. You shake your head, trying to laugh off the tension, though it comes out more as a nervous chuckle. "Bet you thought I was dinner, huh?" you murmur, voice barely more than a whisper. The trees don't answer, but the silence feels a little less oppressive now. You press on, following the fading trail of mammoth prints, your steps lighter despite the weight of the night. The forest remains full of threats, but you're starting to see it the mammoth's way, not as a place of constant fear, but as a puzzle to be solved, a danger to be managed. The circles weren't just habit, they were strategy. A dance with the darkness, steps learned over millennia. You pause beneath a massive spruce, one hand resting on the rough bark, and look up at the stars peeking through the branches. For a moment, the ancient fears and modern worries fall away, and you feel connected to the creatures who once called this world home. Giants who face the night with caution and courage, who carved their paths in circles of survival. And maybe, just maybe, they're still teaching us how to do the same. The trail winds onward, and you press deeper into the forest, the ground uneven beneath your boots, the night heavy with unseen watchers. You've started to notice what the mammoth noticed: every broken twig, every shift in the wind, every sudden silence. And now, as you creep along the path of those immense, deliberate footprints, you see where the mammoth paused. The prints cluster here, overlapping like layered shields, and right in the middle of them is a spot where the earth looks scuffed and disturbed. The mammoth had stopped just here to test the air. You kneel down, fingertips brushing the churned soil. The chill rises from it like a ghost. You can almost see the scene, the great beast head, lifted trunk raised high, sniffing for danger. Its ears twitch, attuned to the tiniest rustle. And that low rumble like distant thunder rolls from its throat, not a roar, not a challenge, but a message. A question for the forest: is the night safe? You close your eyes and listen, trying to match the mammoth's patience. The forest hums with subtle noises, the creak of trees in the wind, the soft patter of a nightbird's wings, the tiny clicks of frost settling. And somewhere faint but clear, the sharp snap of something stepping on a frozen branch. The mammoth heard that too. You're sure of it. Historians still debate whether these rumbling vocalizations served more as communication with other mammoths or as a way to unsettle predators. Either way, it's a sound that would carry far through the cold air, a warning, or maybe a reassurance. Or both. You rise slowly, brushing the dirt from your hands, and can't help but whisper, "Smart old giant," because this wasn't a creature that blundered through the dark. The mammoth used every sense it had, reading the world the way we read a book, carefully, deliberately looking for meaning between the lines. A branch creaks overhead, and you look up in time to see a bundle of snow plummet from a limb, landing with a muffled thump beside you. You jump, your heart doing a ridiculous little jig, and then grin at yourself. "Relax," you mutter. "If the mammoth can handle it, so can I." But you shift your stance anyway, just in case the forest has more surprises. The circling of the tree starts to make even more sense now. From that position, the mammoth could listen in all directions, nose the air for predators or rivals, and rumble its warning. The tree at its back meant one less angle to watch, a built-in shield against the dark. You glance at the nearest trunk and find yourself wishing briefly that trees worked that way for you too. Imagine leaning up against a pine and instantly feeling safe, like you'd set your worries down on the ground beside you. And while we're talking odd facts, here's a little gem. Mammoths weren't just good at scenting danger. Some evidence suggests they had an unusually keen sense of smell for water. Even buried beneath ice and snow, they could find hidden springs or streams. You could probably hire one as a prehistoric plumber. No pipes. No problem. The mammoths got you covered. You step forward again, following the way the prints tighten and curve around another ancient pine. The circles overlap a labyrinth of caution etched into the soil. The mammoth must have walked this pattern for several minutes at least, testing the air, listening for trouble, waiting for the forest to answer its silent questions. And finally, when satisfied, it would have settled, trusting the tree to stand guard while it slept. You think about the sounds that might have kept it awake: the howls of wolves, the cough of a distant lion, the crack of ice splitting in the night. No wonder the mammoth was careful. You're careful too now, moving slowly, ears straining, heart tuned to the rhythms of this ancient place. The forest feels alive with the memories of giants. A sudden breeze shifts the mist, and the moon slips free of the clouds, casting the clearing in silver. You can see the full pattern of the mammoth's work now. Wide circles, narrowing, until they form a kind of nest pressed into the ground, a safe place earned through vigilance. The tree stands tall at its center bark, scarred where tusks brushed against it, branches stretched wide like an old friend keeping watch. You find yourself wanting to speak, to tell the mammoth it chose well, that it can rest easy tonight. But the words stick in your throat because this is not your world. You are a visitor, lucky to witness what you have. The mammoth knew what it was doing. It didn't need your advice, just your respect. And so, with one last look at the tree and its ancient guardian, you step back into the shadows, letting the night close around you once more. The forest hums the air, stings your cheeks, and somewhere faint and far off comes the low, steady rumble of a mammoth asking the darkness its age-old question. The path you follow dips into a hollow where the ground feels softer, spongier beneath your boots. Your foot sinks slightly, and you nearly stumble, catching yourself on a low branch. You mutter something not entirely flattering about prehistoric terrain as you glance down. The soil here is a patchwork of moss leaf litter, and something else roots thick and knotted, crisscrossing beneath your feet like the bones of the earth itself. The kind of roots that could twist and ankle trap a limb, or in the case of a mammoth, bring down a creature that weighs as much as a bus. You look at the mammoth tracks again, at how they weave carefully around these hidden hazards. The circles weren't just about predators or the cold. No, this was about survival in another sense. The ground could betray you just as easily as teeth or claws could. Historians still debate whether mammoths learned to avoid certain areas by watching others fall, or if this knowledge was passed down more subtly through some ancient memory etched into their bones. Either way, it's clear they knew better than to trust the ground beneath their feet. You crouch and run your hand along a particularly large root, its surface slick with frost. The bark is worn in places where centuries of creatures have passed, and here and there deep grooves hint at tusks brushing by, maybe testing its strength. You can imagine the mammoth pausing here, massive foot hovering, as it considered its next step, trunk sweeping low to touch the earth, to feel what lay beneath. The forest is quiet save for the creak of trees shifting in the breeze. It's the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, of your own breath steaming in the night air. You straighten, brushing your hands off on your coat, and take a careful step forward, mimicking the mammoth's caution. The root network seems endless, a tangled web that could easily trip up anything not paying attention. And let's face it, if you go down out here, no one's going to come running. You'd probably just become another odd fact for some future explorer. Here lies someone who forgot to watch their step. You grin at the thought, but the grin fades as you imagine the consequences for a mammoth. A fall could be fatal. A twisted leg, a broken bone, it wouldn't take much. And a mammoth on the ground would be an open invitation to every predator in the region. You think back to the circles, to the way the tracks looped around the trees, avoiding the worst of the roots. Each circuit, a check, a test, a plan. The mammoth wasn't just seeking safety from the outside world, it was making sure the very ground wouldn't betray it. An odd fact drifts into your mind, something you read once in some parts of the world. Ancient tree roots have been found wrapped around fossilized bones, as if the forest was reclaiming its own slowly, patiently. You glance down at the roots beneath your feet and shiver, not from cold this time, but from the weight of that slow, inevitable embrace. The forest always wins in the end. You move on, stepping carefully, following the trail of prints where the ground looks firmer. The mammoth knew what it was doing, picking its way through this maze of hidden dangers. You start to notice the subtle cues, the slight rise where the soil is drier, the way the moss thins near the larger roots. The giant's path wasn't random. It was a map written in steps, in choices, in survival. Somewhere nearby, a branch cracks under the weight of snow and your heart leaps before you realize it's nothing more than the forest settling in for the night. You exhale, shaking your head at your own nerves, and whisper, "Easy, big fella," as if the mammoth's ghost might hear you. The thought makes you smile, but it also makes you feel small in the best possible way. Out here under these ancient trees on this ancient path, you're just one more creature trying to find solid ground. You pause at the base of another massive pine, its trunk wide enough that it would take 3 of you to wrap your arms around it. The roots spread out like spokes on a wheel, thick and gnarled, but the space between them is clear-packed earth, safe footing. The mammoth's tracks tighten here, the circles drawing inward like the rings of a tree, like the spiral of a shell. You can almost see the animal, massive and sure, moving with slow purpose as it chose this spot for rest. You reach out and lay your palm against the tree's rough bark, feeling the cold bite of it, the texture of centuries. Maybe this very tree sheltered a mammoth once. Maybe its roots cradled the steps of giants. Or maybe it just stood witness, silent and steady as the world turned and the giants fell. You draw in a deep breath, the scent of pine and earth filling your lungs, and take one last look at the maze of roots beneath your feet. The forest hums softly around you, the night holding its secrets close. You step back, letting the memory of the mammoth's careful path guide your own, and move on into the shadows, where the next part of the story waits. The air grows colder as you move your breath, hanging in little clouds that drift and vanish in the stillness. You rub your hands together for warmth, though you know it's not just the chill that's making your fingers stiff. It's the weight of the forest pressing in, the ancient sense that this place belongs to something older, something that doesn't care about you. And then, through the mist, you see it, a massive pine, its trunk scarred by time, its branches bending low as if bowing to the past. Around its base, the mammoth's tracks form tight circles, the prints overlapping, pressed deep into the frozen earth. You approach, heart steadying now, drawn by the strange quiet of this spot. The mammoth chose this tree for a reason. You can feel it. The shelter of the trunk isn't just about hiding. It's about survival on a night like this, when the wind howls through the trees like a chorus of ghosts, and the cold has teeth sharp enough to gnaw through even the thickest hide. The mammoth pressed close, its shaggy flank hugging the rough bark, its bulk breaking the wind, the tree breaking the emptiness of the night. You stand where it stood, shoulder brushing the trunk, and feel the difference instantly. The wind cuts less here, the cold held at bay by the sheer presence of the tree. It's no miracle cure, but it's enough. Enough to let a giant rest for a few hours, enough to make sleep possible in a world that never really sleeps. Historians still debate whether mammoths sought out certain trees because of their shape or size, or if any tree would do in a pinch. Some argue they favored pines and spruces for their strength, their ability to stand tall through storms. Others think it was simply about what was available. Whatever the case, this tree was chosen, and you can see why. The mammoth's circles form a kind of nest now, a place carved by caution and wisdom. The prints closest to the trunk are deepest, as if the animal leaned its weight against the bark, trusting it, relying on it in a way that makes you oddly envious. Imagine having a place where just standing close made the world feel safer. You take a step back and look at the scars on the tree, long, pale lines where tusks scraped the bark, where a massive head rubbed in search of comfort, or maybe just to leave a mark, a signature of sorts. Those scars are old, weathered, but they tell a story clearer than words. A story of nights like this one, of wind and cold, and the need to feel the solid world beneath your skin. A gust of wind rattles the branches above, and snow falls in soft clumps, dusting your shoulders, settling in your hair. You shake it off with a laugh, though the sound feels out of place here, as if you've disturbed something sacred. But the forest doesn't mind. The tree stands steady, as it has for centuries, as it will long after you're gone. An odd fact drifts into your mind. Did you know some ancient human shelters were built against trees like this? Not with the tree cut down, but as part of the structure. The trunk became a wall, a windbreak, a symbol of safety. Maybe we learned that from the mammoths. Maybe we just copied what worked. You shift your weight, feeling the uneven ground beneath your boots, and imagine what it must have been like for the mammoth. Huge, heavy, every step a calculation. The tree offered more than shelter from the wind. It offered stability, something to lean on, something that wouldn't give way beneath the weight of survival. The mammoth pressed close, tusks brushing the bark, ears flicking at the night sound's breath, steaming in great clouds that mingled with the mist. And you stand in its place now, feeling the echo of that ancient trust. The tree doesn't mind. The tree remembers. The night deepens, the wind picking up, carrying with it the sense of pine and frost of earth turned by giant feet. You wrap your arms around yourself, trying to hold on to the warmth, and glance once more at the pattern in the ground. The circles are clear, purposeful, a map drawn by instinct and experience. You can almost see the mammoth there, still huddled against the trunk, its massive sides rising and falling. With each breath, the tree a silent companion in the dark. You step away slowly, carefully, not wanting to disturb the memory pressed into the earth. The wind shifts, and for a moment you hear it, the low, rumbling breath of the mammoth, or maybe just the forest sighing in its sleep. Either way, it's enough to remind you that even in a world of giants, the simplest shelter can mean the difference between survival and loss. And so, with the tree at your back, you move on deeper into the night, following the trail of wisdom left by the ones who came before. The forest opens slightly as you move forward, the trees spaced wider apart, the ground firmer beneath your feet. The mist clings low, coiling around the bases of the pines, like some prehistoric river flowing through the roots. And there, as the silver light of the moon returns, you see them patterns in the grass rings where it's been flattened, circles of bark stripped clean at mammoth shoulder height. You pause, breath, misting the air, realizing that what you're seeing isn't the work of one creature one night. This is the legacy of a herd. Generations of mammoths circling these trees, each one leaving its mark, each one adding to the great map of survival drawn into the earth. You step carefully between the rings, boots brushing through the flattened grass. The air is thick with the scent of pine and the faint, sour tang of old trampled earth. These circles weren't made in haste. The mammoths came here often choosing the same trees again and again. A shared wisdom passed down through time. Historians still debate whether these sites were chosen because they offered the best shelter or if mammoths returned simply out of habit, drawn to familiar ground. But as you stand here, you can feel the rightness of it, the way the trees cluster offering protection on all sides, the way the ground holds firm beneath your weight. You kneel beside one of the trees, fingers tracing the smooth, pale scars left by tusks and sides. The bark is worn polished by the bulk of giants, the touch of creatures who once ruled this place. The grass beneath your knees is flattened, the soil compacted by countless feet. It's like standing in the middle of a ghost village, the echoes of the past all around you. And here's an odd little fact to chew on while you take it all in. Ancient herders long after the mammoths had vanished sometimes use these very same spots for their flocks drawn by the same shelter, the same solid ground. It's funny how wisdom lingers even when its source is long gone. You rise, brushing the dirt from your hands, and take in the scene. The rings overlap in places, forming complex patterns like ripples on a pond. The mammoths didn't move randomly. They followed paths learned from those before them, circling, testing, choosing their resting places with care. You can almost see them now. Huge shapes moving through the night flanks, brushing bark trunk, sweeping low ears, flicking at the sounds of the dark. The breeze stirs the grass and you shiver, not from cold this time, but from the sheer weight of time pressing in. These circles are more than just marks in the earth. They're the last traces of a world that's gone, a world where giants walked and the trees stood as their companions. You wonder what other secrets these patterns hold, what other stories the forest keeps hidden beneath its moss and roots. A crack of a branch somewhere behind you makes you jump, heart racing, until you realize it's only a deer stepping softly through the underbrush, its eyes wide and cautious. Even now, the animals of the forest move with care in these ancient places, as if they too remember. You move on, following the trail of circles, the path of flattened grass leading you deeper into the grove. The ground here is smooth, worn down by generations of feet, the bark of the trees polished to a sheen where mammoth sides once rubbed. The air feels thicker, the night quieter, as if the forest itself is holding its breath, waiting for the giants to return. You stop at the edge of the largest ring, a wide, perfect circle pressed deep into the earth. You can almost feel the presence of the herd, the warmth of their bodies, the low rumble of their voices. The tree at the center stands tall and straight, its bark pale in the moonlight, its branches reaching out like arms offering shelter. You rest your hand against it, feeling the roughness beneath your palm, and close your eyes just for a moment, imagining what it must have been like to stand here when the herd was real, when the ground shook with their passing and the air was filled with the sound of their breath. You open your eyes and step back, letting the forest reclaim its quiet. The rings stretch out around you, a map of memory etched into the land, a reminder of what was and what's been lost. And as you move on deeper into the night, you feel a little less alone, as if the ghosts of the mammoths walk with you, their wisdom guiding your steps. The air sharpens as you push deeper into the trees, the scent of frost mingling with pine, and the faint, almost sweet smell of decaying leaves. The rings of flattened grass and scarred bark are behind you now, but their memory clings like smoke. You keep glancing over your shoulder, half expecting to see shadows moving where no shadows should be. And then, as if the forest answers your unspoken fears, a glint of yellow catches your eye. You stop. There at the edge of the clearing, just beyond where the moonlight dares to reach, two eyes gleam low to the ground, watching. The shape is hard to make out cloaked in the night, but you don't need details. The size, the stillness, the cold focus of that gaze, predator. Maybe a saber-toothed cat body coiled beneath its thick fur muscles, tensed, waiting. Or a dire wolf breath steaming in slow bursts, clever and patient. You feel the weight of the night settle heavier on your shoulders. This is why the mammoth circled. This is what it felt, the threat that waits in the dark, silent, calculating. Historians still debate whether predators targeted resting mammoths often, or preferred the young and weak, but when you see those eyes, that stillness, you understand why a giant wouldn't take chances. You shift your stance, trying not to make noise, though every breath feels too loud, too bright in this quiet. The predator doesn't move, but the air between you feels charged like a wire pulled too tight. You glance at the nearest tree, imagining the mammoth pressed close, tusks ready, body turned to defend. It's a good plan. The tree shields one side, and the mammoth size and strength guard the rest. Though you've got nothing but a coat and a racing heart. A branch cracks somewhere behind the watcher, another predator, or maybe just the forest playing tricks. Either way, the eyes vanish as swiftly as they appeared, swallowed by shadow. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding, and try to steady your pulse. Nice kitty, you mutter, because sometimes a joke is all that stands between you and panic. You take a cautious step back, boots crunching softly on frozen leaves, and your mind turns over what you've just seen. The mammoth wasn't circling out of nervousness. It was strategy. It was survival. Each turn around the tree gave it another moment to check, to listen, to sense what the night held. And when the danger came, as it inevitably did, it was ready. An odd fact surfaces from the depths of your memory. In some ancient camps, early humans carved images of these predators alongside mammoths on bone and stone. Maybe to tell stories of hunts, maybe to mark victories, or maybe just to remind themselves what waited out there in the dark. You wonder if any of those carvings captured the gleam of eyes like the ones you just saw. You bet they did. You move on slower now. Senses wide open, the forest no longer just a place of quiet, but a living, breathing thing filled with watchers. The wind shifts, bringing the soft rustle of branches, the distant hoot of an owl, the creak of ice in the trees. You glance at the ground, at the faint trail of mammoth prints leading on, and you follow. Because whatever the danger, the mammoth walked this path first, and its wisdom might just keep you safe tonight. The clearing opens up again, the moonlight brighter here, washing the world in silver. You can see where the mammoth circled, deep prints churned soil, bark stripped clean on a wide old pine. You can almost hear the low rumble of its breath, feel the vibration of its steps through the earth. The predator's eyes flash in your memory, and you understand why the mammoth didn't just lie down anywhere. The tree wasn't just shelter, it was defense, a partner in the dance of survival. You stop at the edge of the clearing, letting the night settle around you. The forest hums with life, with memory, with the ghosts of giants and the watchers who trailed them. And as you stand there, heart steadying, breath misting the air, you feel a little closer to the world. The mammoth knew a world of caution, of wisdom, of quiet strength in the face of unseen danger. The path of mammoth prints leads you onward. The ground firmer, now the trees taller, their trunks thick as ancient pillars holding up the night sky. You step carefully, boots crunching softly on a thin crust of frost. The air is sharper here, tinged with the scent of pine sap and cold stone. And then you see her, the matriarch. Not in the flesh, of course, but in your mind's eye, built from the evidence all around you. The prints are deeper, wider spaced, with a slow, deliberate rhythm that speaks of size and age. She led the herd through these woods, and you can feel her presence in every careful step. The circles she made around the tree ahead are broader, more confident. The scars on the bark higher where her great tusks brushed as she tested the tree's strength. You follow the path, imagining the matriarch's massive form moving through the night, her breath steaming, her eyes sharp with the wisdom of decades. Behind her, smaller prints cluster juveniles and calves, learning the way, mimicking her, circling her pauses, her tests of the air and ground. Historians still debate whether these behaviors were taught consciously, like a parent showing a child how to build a fire, or if young mammoths simply learned by watching, absorbing survival with every step. But here in this clearing, it's easy to believe in the teaching power of example. You crouch beside one of the smaller prints, the shape clear in the frost. You can almost see the young mammoth trunk lifted, ears flared, mimicking the matriarch's caution, learning where to step, how to choose the safest tree. The forest around you feels full of their voices, low rumbles, soft trumpets, the sounds of a herd moving as one. You smile despite the chill, imagining the scene. The great matriarch turning in slow circles, calves stumbling at her heels, trying to match her pace, her care. And here's an odd fact that drifts into your mind As these ancient lessons play out before you, some modern elephants have been observed teaching their young how to navigate human-altered landscapes, showing them safe paths, waterholes, even how to avoid roads. The wisdom of matriarchs crosses ages and species, it seems. You stand and move closer to the central tree, its bark scarred with generations of mammoth marks. The ground beneath it is packed hard, the grass worn away to bare soil where mammoth after mammoth press close for shelter for safety. The matriarch's circles are clearest here. Deep grooves in the earth where her massive feet trace their slow, deliberate paths. She knew what she was doing. She wasn't just looking for a place to sleep, she was teaching, guiding, protecting. Her every step was a lesson in survival. You rest your hand on the tree's trunk, feeling the rough bark beneath your fingers, and imagine her there, massive and steady, a living fortress for her herd. The calves would have huddled near her side, their small bodies warmed by her bulk, their fears eased by the solid presence of tree and elder. The forest would have seemed less threatening with her there, less full of shadows and watchers. The wind stirs, carrying the soft creak of branches, the whisper of distant movement. You glance into the trees, half expecting to see glowing eyes again, but the night offers only mist and moonlight. Still, you understand the matriarch's vigilance. The predators were real, and so was the danger. The tree was a shield, but so was she. You move on following the overlapping prints of the herd, the path they carved through the clearing. The circles widen again, the young learning to trace their own paths, to test the ground, to choose their trees. You can almost hear the soft rumble of approval as the matriarch watched them, guiding without words, leading by example. And as you walk, you feel the wisdom of the ages settling around you like a cloak. The slow, patient knowledge of giants, the lessons carved into earth and bark, the teachings of a world where survival meant listening, watching, circling, choosing with care. You follow their path step by step and let the matriarch's memory lead you deeper into the night. The night deepens, and with it comes a change in the air, a tension that crackles like static, a hush that feels too complete. You glance upward and your breath catches. The stars are gone, swallowed by dark clouds rolling fast across the sky. The moonlight fades, and in its place the first tremble of thunder rumbles through the forest, low and distant but growing. A storm is coming. And not just any storm, the kind that turns night into chaos, that strips the trees bare, that tests every creature's strength and wisdom. You quicken your pace, following the trail of mammoth prints now marked by smears where the soil has started to soften beneath the first scattered drops of freezing rain. You find another ring of circles, this one larger, more chaotic. The tracks overlap, veer outward, then return as if the mammoth had been restless, uneasy. And above the tree at its center is shattered, its top snapped clean off the wood, splintered and raw. Lightning. You can see it clear as day in your mind. The flash that split the sky, the crack that split the tree, the sudden terror that would have sent even a giant like the mammoth staggering back. Historians still debate how storms shaped mammoth behavior. Did they have specific rituals for weather, or were these circles simply a byproduct of their careful nightly checks? But as you stand here, cold rain starting to patter against your coat, you can feel the truth in your bones. The storm mattered. The tree that had been shelter became a threat in an instant, and the mammoth, wise and massive, had to adapt. The wind picks up, whistling through the broken branches above, carrying the smell of wet earth and pine resin. You step closer to the shattered trunk, laying your palm against its jagged surface. The wood is damp, the splinters sharp. You can almost feel the energy that tore through it, the raw power of the lightning that turned protection into danger. The mammoth tracks circle outward from here, wide and fast, as if it had moved away, giving the tree a respectful distance. You can't blame it. You're tempted to do the same. And here's a little odd fact for you while the rain begins to fall harder. Some ancient cultures believed that lightning-struck trees held special power, that they were touched by the gods. Maybe mammoths felt the same in their own way, recognizing the danger, respecting the force that could shatter their chosen shelter in a heartbeat. The clearing seems wilder, now the storm's edge creeping closer, the wind bending the trees making them groan and sway. You imagine the mammoth herd huddled together, the matriarch leading them to a new shelter, away from the broken tree, the shattered safety. Their circles would have shifted, their patterns changed by the storm's fury. And you, small and cold beneath these ancient giants, follow their wisdom, moving on, seeking a safer place as the storm bears down. The rain comes heavier now, cold and stinging. The wind tearing at your coat, driving the mist into your eyes. You blink it away, pressing forward, boots slipping on the slick earth. Heart beating fast, not from fear of predators this time, but from the raw force of nature itself. You understand now why the mammoths circled, why they chose their trees so carefully, why they moved when the storm demanded. Survival wasn't just about teeth and claws. It was about knowing when to stay and when to go, when to trust the shelter of a tree and when to run from it. You reach the edge of the clearing and glance back once at the broken tree, the shattered trunk stark against the dark sky. The storm rages on, lightning flashing in the distance, thunder rolling over the land like the footfalls of giants. And you move on, following the path of the mammoths, letting their ancient wisdom guide you through the storm. The storm has passed, leaving the world washed clean but raw. The forest drips with rainwater, branches heavy with it, the air sharp with ozone and wet pine. You move slowly now, boots squelching through soft patches of earth that weren't so soft before the downpour. The trail of mammoth prints is harder to follow here, the storm smoothed. Some edges filled, some hollows, but you can still see where the giant moved, careful even in chaos. The circles are broader, more spaced, as if the mammoth was testing each patch of ground before trusting it with its enormous weight. You pause, kneeling beside one print deeper than the rest. The soil here is darker, richer, a little sunken. The mammoth must have felt the give beneath its foot, must have paused, shifted, tested again. You do the same, pressing your hand into the earth. The ground feels treacherous, eager to swallow more than just your fingers. A soft spot, the kind that could have meant disaster for a creature so large. Historians still debate how sensitive mammoths were to these shifts in the ground, whether they could feel danger through vibration alone, or if it was the slow accumulation of experience, step after cautious step. Either way, they knew. They had to. You stand and take a step back, eyeing the forest floor with new respect. What looked like solid ground could hide mud pits, sinkholes, or the remains of ancient root systems ready to collapse under weight. The mammoth circled not just to check for predators, not just to find shelter from the wind, but to read the earth itself, to listen through the soles of its feet to the warnings buried beneath the moss and soil. The thought makes you pause, boots still, ears straining. And sure enough, if you focus hard enough, you can feel it, a faint vibration, a whisper through the ground as water seeps deeper, as roots shift, as the forest settles in the storm's wake. The mammoth would have felt that too long before you noticed it. No wonder it circled. No wonder it moved with such care. And here's a curious fact to break the tension. Modern elephants are known to communicate using vibrations through the ground, their low rumbles traveling miles beneath the surface. Some scientists believe mammoths likely did the same. Imagine that giants whispering secrets through the earth while you stumble around trying not to trip over a root. You grin at the thought, but your smile fades as you look at the landscape around you. The storm's mark is clear. Branches downed, soil turned small rivulets of water, carving paths through the undergrowth. It's a world in flux, shifting beneath your feet. And the mammoth's wisdom was to read those shifts, to choose its resting place with care, born of necessity. You take a step, then another mimicking that caution, and you feel the difference. The firmer ground offers confidence. The softer patches demand respect. You come to another tree, this one leaning slightly from the storm's force, its roots exposed on one side where the soil has washed away. The mammoth's tracks arc wide here, giving the tree space, as if the giant knew it could no longer be trusted to stand tall. You run your hand along the exposed roots, slick with mud, and marvel at the quiet conversation that must have passed between Mammoth and Earth. A test of trust, a test of survival. You move on following the trail as it curves back toward higher ground where the soil feels firmer, the trees more steady. The mammoth chose well, as always, and you, guided by those ancient steps, follow with a little more confidence, a little more care. The storm may have passed, but the lesson lingers in a world as wild and untamed as this. It pays to listen to the air, to the trees, and most of all, to the ground beneath your feet. The forest thins as you follow the mammoth's trail out of the trees where the world opens wide, and the night sky stretches above you like a vast dark ocean. The ground here is flatter, the grass short and stiff with frost, the trees scattered and stunted by wind and cold. You pause, boots planted firm, and feel exposed, as if the shadows you'd grown used to had been stripped away, leaving you small beneath the stars. This is tundra land, open, merciless, and without the shelter of the forest's ancient guardians. But the mammoth came here too. The tracks curve and loop in broad arcs, the circle still clear, though there are no trees at their center now. You follow them, frowning, trying to understand. Without trunks to lean against, what did the mammoth seek? And then you see it, a scatter of boulders half buried in the frozen ground, their surfaces worn smooth by time and weather. The mammoth's prints weave around them, the circles wider, less precise, but still purposeful. It was making do, adapting to what the land offered. Historians still debate how often mammoths ventured into these open spaces to sleep, or whether they preferred to stay near the forest's edge. But here's the proof beneath your feet. They came, they circled, they found their way. You step toward the largest boulder, its top crusted with frost, its bulk rising like the hump of some long-dead beast. The mammoth's tracks pass close, the soil pressed flat where its massive body brushed the stone. Without trees, this rock became shelter, a barrier against the wind, a point of reference in the empty dark. You lay your hand on it, feeling the cold seep into your skin, and imagine the mammoth standing here, tusks gleaming under the stars, trunk lifted to test the air. There's a kind of quiet courage in that image, no trees to hide behind, no branches to break the wind, just the giant and the land facing the night together. And here's an odd fact to lighten the mood. While you stand out in this emptiness, some ancient people believe that certain boulders were the frozen hearts of giants left behind when the world cooled at the end of mythic ages. You can't help but grin. Tonight, with the cold biting and the stars watching, it feels almost true. You follow the circles as they continue around the boulders, then drift toward a rise in the ground where snow has drifted into low mounds. The mammoth used these too, it seems. The prints arc around the snow piles, the circles tighter here, as if the giant sought the cold's own creations for shelter. You step close to one of the drifts, boots crunching through the crust, and feel the wind break slightly, the mound offering a pocket of calm. It's not much, but it's enough to see the wisdom. The mammoth didn't need perfection. It needed what worked. A rock, a snowbank, even just a rise in the land, any of it could serve if it kept the wind at bay and offered some anchor in the vastness. The night deepens, the cold sharper, the sky above you, endless and bright with stars. The mammoth circles here are softer, less distinct where the wind has brushed at the tracks, but the pattern is still there, a map of adaptation, of resilience. The giant didn't stop circling just because the trees were gone. It found new ways, new shapes, new shelters. You take a deep breath, the air burning in your lungs, and feel a quiet respect for the creature that moved through this land with such steady grace. You glance back toward the forest's edge where the dark line of trees stands against the sky, and then forward across the open land where the mammoth's wisdom carried it through the night. And you follow step by careful step, letting that ancient knowledge guide you through the emptiness. You press on across the open land, the cold settling deeper into your bones, your breath clouding in thick, slow puffs. The mammoth's tracks lead you along gentle rises and dips, circling here skirting. They're always moving with that same cautious rhythm. But now, as you crest a small ridge, the landscape changes not in the sweep of the land, but in the details beneath your feet. The soil is disturbed in ways that don't match the mammoth's great careful prints. Scattered among the circles are smaller marks cut in the earth, little pits where something sharp struck hard. You kneel brushing frost away and your fingers find the cold edge of stone. A point, a weapon. You hold it up and the starlight glints off the ancient flint. A spearhead. Your heart thuds in your chest as you realize what this means. This wasn't just the mammoth's ground. Humans were here too. Hunters with eyes fixed on giants, hands clenched around weapons hearts pounding with hunger and risk. The circles around the trees, around the boulders, around the snow mounds, they weren't just for predators with fur and fangs. They were a defense against upright predators too. Ones who walked on two legs, who planned and stalked and waited for the moment the giant lowered itself to sleep. Historians still debate just how much human hunting contributed to the mammoth's extinction. Was it our spears that doomed them, or the warming world that shrank their icy domain? Or both? You sit there in the frost, turning the spearhead in your hand, and think about the men and women who crouched here in the dark waiting. You can almost hear them whispering to each other, breath steaming and the cold eyes flicking to where the mammoth circled, searching for a safe place to rest. The hunters would have known the patterns. They would have learned the signs, the tight circles, the choice of shelter, the moment when the mammoth let down its guard. You rise slowly, eyes scanning the ground. More spear points glint in the starlight, half buried, scattered, as if dropped in haste or left behind after the chase. You picture the scene, the mammoth circling, testing the ground, sensing something wrong in the night air. The hunters waiting, blades ready. The tree or the boulder offering some small defense, but never enough against spears and fire and human determination. And here's an odd fact to chew on while you stand in that ancient battleground. Some Ice Age hunters made their spear points with grooves that they filled with poison from plants or rotting meat. A grim bit of ingenuity, as if the giant wasn't hard enough to bring down already. You step into the wide circle of prints where the mammoth must have turned again and again, trying to read the night, trying to decide. The tree it chose bears no scars of tusks, no smooth bark from flanks pressed close. Maybe it was interrupted before it could settle. Maybe it never found a place that felt safe enough. The prints lead away from the tree wide and fast, as if the mammoth gave up on rest that night and chose to move on to outdistance the danger. You follow the tracks, boots crunching softly. The spearhead still in your hand, heavy now with the weight of its history. The mammoth didn't just circle for comfort or out of habit. It circled because it had to, because every night was a question of survival. And sometimes even the wisest giant couldn't outwit the hunters who shared its world. The wind picks up, carrying the scent of frost and old earth, and you move on the trail of the mammoth, guiding you through the open land. The night feels sharper now, the stars colder. But the giant's wisdom is still there in every careful step, every circle drawn in the frozen soil. You follow, humbled through a world that remembers both hunter and hunted, both spear and tusk. The sky begins to pale, the stars fading one by one as dawn creeps over the horizon. The cold feels different now, less like the bite of a predator, more like the quiet hand of morning brushing the world clean. You follow the trail of the mammoth's prints across the open land where the snow glows blue in the first light and the air smells of frost and the promise of day. The circles the mammoth made have softened in the night, wind-blown and dusted with fresh powder, but they're still there, faint spirals in the whiteness, reminders of the dance that filled the dark hours. And then you see them, shapes rising from the land like boulders but moving slow and deliberate. Mammoths. A small group rousing from their night's rest. You stop in your tracks, heart thudding, hardly daring to breathe. The giants stretch their limbs, massive forms, shifting and swaying, trunks curling to touch the ground. The air each other. Their breath clouds in the morning chill mingling with the mist that hugs the earth. The sound of them fills the silence, a low rumble that seems to come from the soil itself, the forest's forgotten voice waking with the day. You stand very still watching as the herd stirs. The matriarch moves first, stepping forward with the slow grace of one who has led through many dawns. Her sides are scarred, her tusks worn at the tips, but her strength is plain in every step. Behind her, the younger mammoths follow, rumbling, softly brushing their trunks against her flank, against the trees, against the ground. The circles they made during the night are visible here, pressed into the earth around the gnarled pines, the boulders, even the drifts of snow. Each giant's resting place marked by the spiral path of caution, of care. Historians still debate how much of this behavior was instinct and how much was learned passed from one generation to the next in quiet dawns like this. But as you watch the matriarch pause to nudge a calf gently back toward the shelter of a tree, you feel certain it was both. The wisdom of survival doesn't come from just one place. It's built from the needs of the body and the memory of the herd, shaped by hunger, fear, and love. An odd fact tickles your mind as you watch them. Did you know mammoths likely had a particular low-frequency rumble that could travel through the ground for miles, allowing them to keep in touch across vast distances? You wonder if you felt that rumble in your bones tonight without even realizing it's some ancient signal that reminded you to move carefully, to listen, to respect the night. The light grows stronger, and the mammoths begin to move on their great feet, pressing new paths into the frost, their breath warming the morning air. The matriarch leads, of course, and the others follow without question, their steps slow but certain, the forest parting before them, as if it remembers them still. You let them go, watching until their shapes blur with the mist and the distance, until all that's left is the memory of their presence and the circles they left behind. You take a breath, slow and deep, filling your lungs with the clean, cold air. The forest feels different now, less a place of threat, more a place of memory, of story. The danger of the night has faded, but the wisdom of the mammoths lingers, carved into the earth with every careful step, every spiral around a tree, a boulder, a snowdrift. You step forward, boots crunching softly, following the faint trail of their passing into the dawn. The mammoths are gone now, their great shapes swallowed by the morning mist, leaving only the faint echoes of their steps and the ghostly imprint of their circles on the frost-kissed earth. You follow their trail a little longer, boots crunching softly, the cold air turning warmer with each breath of dawn. The land feels quieter somehow, as if the night's tension has lifted, replaced by a kind of reverence. The trees, the stones, even the humps of snow seem to lean inward, holding on to the memory of the giants who passed this way. You come upon the last of the mammoth circles, a wide, fading spiral etched into the frost at the edge of a stand of ancient pines. The tracks here are lighter, as if the mammoth moved more easily, its caution eased by the growing light. You kneel beside the print's, fingers brushing the ground where the great feet press down. The soil is firm beneath the frost, the kind of ground a mammoth would have trusted, chosen for its final rest of the night. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine the scene, the giant settling, breath rumbling, low eyes half closed, but always watching, always aware. Historians still debate whether these final, fainter circles meant the mammoth had found peace, or simply that it knew the night was nearly over, that the dawn would bring safety no tree or stone could offer. But here in the soft hush of morning, it feels like peace. The circles seem less like defenses now, and more like farewells, the mammoth's last mark on the world before it moved on. You rise slowly, letting the mist curl around your boots, the chill seep into your bones one last time. The forest is reclaiming the trail already wound, brushing at the prints, frost filling the hollows, branches lowering their arms over the path. The circles fade, the trail blurs, the memory of the herd slips into the silence of the land. And you, small beneath the towering pines, feel the weight of time settle gently on your shoulders. The mammoths are gone, but their wisdom lingers in the soil, in the trees, in the quiet places where giants once walked. An odd fact drifts through your mind as you take one last look at the fading circles in parts of Siberia. People once believed that mammoth bones, unearthed by the thaw, were the remains of great underground beasts still alive beneath the earth, surfacing only when the world was ready to remember them. You can't help but smile at that. It's a comforting thought in a way. Maybe the mammoths aren't gone, not entirely. Maybe they're just waiting beneath frost and time for us to listen again. You turn away, stepping softly, letting the forest close behind you. The path is yours now, but the circles, the wisdom of the giants will always be here, hidden in the quiet places waiting to be found. Now, as the world brightens, let's slow down together for a moment. Imagine the forest softening into a blur of pale light and drifting mist. The last of the mammoth's breath seems to linger in the air, a warmth that promises the night is truly over. You walk slower now, each step lighter, each breath deeper. The trees grow indistinct, their shapes melting into the dawn, their scars hidden in shadow and soft gold. The wind hums gently, no longer cold and sharp, but mild, carrying the memory of giants in its whisper. Let that whisper wrap around you, safe and still, as the story fades with the last of the night. And in that quiet, remember the circles remain. The wisdom remains. And so do you, walking gently where giants once walked.